What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison of the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G versus the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE 5G. Now, these two devices were recently launched by Samsung, and I'm looking forward to showing you in this video all the various similarities and differences between these two phones. But one thing to keep in mind is that there is a price difference between these two devices. Now, the A53 5G is the more affordable device of the two, coming in at an MSRP of $449, whereas the Galaxy S21 FE 5G has an MSRP of $699. So there's a $250 difference between these two devices. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that most people will not be paying the full MSRP for either of these two phones, as Samsung tends to offer some really generous discounts on their online store, especially if you're going to be trading in your current smartphone. So I definitely recommend taking a look at the various links in the video description to see the current offers that are available for either of these two devices. Based on the time that you're watching this video, one of these phones might be on sale more than the other, so that's certainly a major factor when deciding which one to go for. Now, one thing that's interesting with these two devices is that the boxes are very small for both of them, and for a very good reason. We don't have a USB wall adapter included with either of these two phones. They do give you a double-sided USB-C charging cable, but that's pretty much all we're getting. So keep in mind that you will have to either use your current wall adapter or you'll have to go and get one on your own. Now, with the Galaxy A53, we do have a 6.5-inch display compared to a slightly smaller 6.4-inch display with the S21 FE. Now, the glass technology that's used is also different in the sense that we have Corning Gorilla Glass 5 with the A53, whereas with the S21 FE, we have Corning Gorilla Glass Victus, and that is a bit more durable. Now, you can see when holding these two phones up next to each other, they do look pretty similar in size. However, the S21 FE is slightly smaller. Now, that's not only due to it having a smaller display, but also the bezels are a bit smaller as well. Now, as far as the actual display technology that's used with these phones, it is slightly different. So with the A53, we do have a Super AMOLED display compared to Dynamic AMOLED with the S21 FE. And then both phones do feature 120 Hz refresh rates, which is pretty awesome. So if you do want that nice, smooth, premium experience that you'd expect with a higher-end smartphone, you are at least getting that here with both of these devices, despite the A53 5G being a mid-range phone and the S21 FE being essentially a lower-end flagship. Now, with both devices, we do have 1080p displays. We have a PPI of 405 with the A53 compared to 401 with the S21 FE. Both phones do have 20:9 aspect ratios, so they have a more narrow but taller form factor. And with the A53, we have an 85.4% screen-to-body ratio compared to 89.6% with the S21 FE. So when looking at the front panels of these displays, you can probably tell yourself, but again, as I mentioned a second ago, the bezels are smaller with the S21 FE. Now, up top here with both devices, we do have 32 megapixel front-facing cameras. However, the hole punch is slightly larger for the S21 FE compared to the A53. Now, with both of these devices, we are getting 128 gigabytes of internal storage, and they both are offered in 256 gigabyte options as well. Now, with the Galaxy A53, we have microSD card expansion, whereas there is no microSD card expansion with the Galaxy S21 FE. Now, with the A53, there is no wireless charging, whereas the S21 FE supports wireless charging at up to 15 watts. Now, both of these devices do have in-display fingerprint sensors, so I'll give you a demonstration of that right now. So nice and fast and accurate there with the Galaxy A53. We'll do that one more time. So again, very good. And then we'll try out the S21 FE right now. Very quick. We'll try that one more time. Also very fast. So I would say as far as the fingerprint sensors go with both of these phones, they're both very quick and accurate. And both devices also support facial recognition, so it is nice that we do have multiple methods for accessing the phones. Now, as far as the rear cameras go with these devices, there are some major differences. So the first difference is that with the Galaxy A53, we have one additional camera, which is the macro camera. And there is no macro camera with the Galaxy S21 FE. Now, with the main cameras on these devices, we're getting 64 megapixels with the Galaxy A53 compared to 12 megapixels with the Galaxy S21 FE. Now keep in mind that even though the megapixel count with this device is lower, these phones do use different technology when it comes to the actual camera lenses and sensors, so just because it does have a lower megapixel count doesn't necessarily mean the photos are not going to look as good. In general, you should expect to get better image quality with the various photos and videos from the Galaxy S21 FE compared to the Galaxy A53. Now both devices do have 12 megapixel ultra wide angle cameras, which is awesome. And then with the Galaxy A53, we have a dedicated depth sensing camera. And then with the Galaxy S21 FE, we have an 8 megapixel telephoto camera. So that's nice as it does give you an optical zoom, allowing you to zoom in but still retain really good quality. Whereas with the A53, if you do want to zoom in, it is going to be a digital zoom. Now here's how things look on the camera apps on both devices. This is the main camera right now. Then from here, we can switch over to the ultra wide angle cameras on both phones. So you are able to fit quite a bit more into the frame here, which is awesome. And then you do have the option to zoom in at 2x or even more if you want to with the Galaxy A53, but keep in mind that this is just using a digital zoom, whereas with the Galaxy S21 FE, we do have that 3x optical zoom, which is really good. Then from here, with the Galaxy A53, I can go over to the More tab to access the macro camera, which allows us to get very close up here. And we don't have that feature with the S21 FE, but you can at least get very close up with that telephoto camera to kind of replicate what you'd get with a macro camera. So that is at least worth considering. We can also head over to portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds, and then we can flip around to the front-facing cameras to do the same exact thing. So you can take portrait selfies, you can even crop out a bit to take a group selfie with either of the two phones, and if you want to, you can take standard selfies as well without having portrait mode enabled. So what's nice though is that at least with both of these phones, we are getting a variety of different camera features. So that's certainly nice because oftentimes, if you're going from a flagship to a mid-range device, you're just losing out on certain cameras. Now, of course, we don't have a telephoto camera with the Galaxy A53, but that's pretty much the only feature that we're not getting here that we are getting with the S21 FE as far as the actual hardware goes. Now, in general, pretty much all of the various camera sensors and everything are going to be higher quality with the Galaxy S21 FE, but at least we still are getting those various features with the Galaxy A53. Now, depending on which model of these devices you get, you'll either have 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM, but if you get these phones with 128 gigabytes of internal storage, as I have, you are getting 6 gigabytes of RAM. Now, the processors with these devices are different. With the Galaxy A53, we're getting the Samsung Exynos 1280 processor, whereas with the Galaxy S21 FE, we're getting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888. Now, the 888, at least for 2021, was the top of the line processor from Qualcomm, so that's certainly something worth considering, whereas the Exynos 1280 is more of a mid-range processor. Now, as suggested in their full names, both of these phones do support 5G, which is awesome, so if you do want to use your carrier's latest 5G networks, then you can do that with either of these two phones. Now, as far as the processor speeds go, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests with both of these phones, and here are the scores from that test. Now, as you can see, there certainly is a difference, and especially for multi-core, but at the same time, it's not like there's a massive gap between these scores either. But what I'd recommend doing is running this test on your current phone, and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of whether or not either of these two phones are going to be a performance upgrade to you. But the good news is that either of these two devices are plenty capable for the majority of people out there, especially if you're using your phone mostly for social media, web browsing, emails, phone calls, and text messages. All those various functions are going to work great on either of these two phones, which is certainly an awesome thing. Now, video recording with these two devices maxes out at 4K with both the front and rear cameras on both devices, which is really nice. And as far as battery capacity goes, we actually have a slightly larger battery with the Galaxy A53 at 5,000 milliamp hours compared to 4,500 milliamp hours with the Galaxy S21 FE. However, both of these phones do support 25 watt fast charging. Now, as far as software goes, it's a pretty similar experience here in the sense that both phones are running Android 12 with Samsung's One UI 4.1. So if you've used any Samsung device within the last several years, then the software experience is definitely going to feel very familiar here with both of these phones. Now, both devices do have NFC, which is great. Both phones have stereo speakers, which is another awesome feature to have. And as far as the IP ratings go, they are a little bit different. So the Galaxy A53 features an IP67 dust and water resistance rating, which means that you can go underwater for up to 1 meter for up to 30 minutes. And then with the Galaxy S21 FE, we have a slightly better IP68 dust and water resistance to it. Now, taking a closer look at the hardware of these phones, both phones are made out of plastic. However, both phones do feel of decent quality. They certainly don't feel cheap by any means. And when you're looking at the devices, they both still look and feel premium. Now, I'm also a big fan of both of these phones having matte finishes on the back. I'm not really a big fan of any sort of glossy finish because those always pick up a bunch of fingerprints. And as you can see, despite me using both of these devices, there really aren't any fingerprints on either of them. I suppose since the Galaxy S21 FE is slightly darker, you can kind of see the fingerprints, but compared to a phone with a glossy back, you really can't see them on either of these two devices, which is great. Now, taking a look at the left side of both phones, we have nothing. Then on the right side of the devices, we have volume up and volume down and the power buttons. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphones. And then on the bottom of the two phones, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. We have the microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and we have the speaker. So a pretty similar layout all throughout these two phones as far as buttons, ports, and speakers go. Now, you probably noticed this already, but there is no 3.5mm headphone jack with either of these two phones. So if you do want that feature, then you are gonna have to go for something else. And then taking a look at the backside of the two devices, again, they are both made out of plastic. The cameras are a little bit different in design as far as the actual camera modules go, but in general, the two phones do have quite a few similarities to them. But this concludes my comparison of the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G versus the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE 5G. I'm definitely curious to know what you think of these two devices and which one you personally would go for, but overall, I'm very impressed with the Galaxy A53 5G in the sense that this phone is giving us a ton of value despite being quite a bit less expensive compared to the S21 FE. But to see the most up-to-date pricing and availability, take a look at the various links in the video description, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and sub to the channel. But this is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next video. Take care and have a great rest of your day.